In studio right now is Jeff Carpenter, and you get to be on TV this morning.
Well, good morning, Bill.
Pull
Thank
that
you.
mic if you could, nice and close. So you went through the primary, victorious, a little closer than anybody would probably want it. But at the end of the day, you're on the Republican line. You're facing Mr. Daley, who is now the Democrat.
Right. And primaries are always closer than you would like. I mean, it's the
It's a
same
different
party.
battle, isn't it?
You pit people in the same party against each other, and,
Right.
and nobody wins in that regard.
And in Herkimer County, it's interesting right now. The Herkimer County, I've always felt, was the most well-run Republican machine you'd find anywhere, and there's a bit of a split right now.
No, that's not true. I think
you
it
don't
still
believe
is
so?
a well-run machine.
Yeah.
I was the endorsed candidate. All the endorsed candidates won. So
And they won, right.
So I think that.
Mark Butler had a big challenge
Absolutely.
out of that as well. But I guess what I would say is years ago you wouldn't have seen a challenge. It probably would have been stopped before the challenge.
Well, that's
actually
right, especially
occurred,
by
so.
someone who's been in the arena in the
A
past.
former DA.
Absolutely, would
So
never happen.
a lot of charges out there. Let's talk about some of them. I'll let you dictate which direction we go, if you'd like. Which topic do you want to hit on?
Yeah,
So how
unfortunately.
about safety? You want to go down the Herkimer County being safe?
Well,
or not?
let's talk about what I think Mr. Daley was on yesterday, and I did listen to the show last night from the notes, and you talked about the signs.
We can get into that.
I think you called it some kind of a sideshow or something, and really it is. There's no question about it. But I think underlying there is the issue of credibility.
Right.
And I heard Mr. Daley last night tell your listeners yesterday that Mary Akavazi sued 5 years ago, and the village had to pay a settlement. Well, what he forgot to tell you was since then they amended the law. They actually amended the law in 2012, and because what Mary Akavazi, I believe the lawsuit was, pertained to the content. They actually were regulating political signs, and you can't do that.
Right.
But
right.
the size issue was not discussed. So there's currently a law. I actually brought it. I'll give it to you. I'm happy for you to have it.
Yep.
There's a law in place right now that prohibits the 4-foot by 8-foot signs, the 32 square foot signs. We both have them, but I don't have any in the village of Herkimer because the law is clear. And quite frankly, I don't buy the whole argument that the village board said we're not going to enforce the law. They don't have that authority. There's a law on the books. You either have to repeal that law, change that law, or you have to enforce that law. So I think it's very
In fairness,
clear.
if he's saying that, and first of all, obviously, if the law was amended to stay within the boundaries of the Constitution,
Correct.
Then that would be fair. So the law is the law.
Right.
However, he is saying that they contacted him and he said I'd take the signs down, and he said, don't do it, leave them up, we'll deal with this afterwards.
Yeah, but he's a lawyer,
if that's
Bill.
true, right.
He's a lawyer. There's a statute. I have it. He should be able to read it. If you read it, you know your sign is illegal.
You feel he should have taken that down based on principle.
He shouldn't have put them up.
Right.
The
Should not
law
have
is there, which prohibits those signs. You don't even put them up. So they should come down. I heard him say yesterday they're not coming down. Well, you're going to continue to violate the law. The law is on the books.
Got it.
You shouldn't violate the law. You want to be the district attorney.
In terms of safety, we're going, and we talked yesterday about how it would be great to have the two of you in one room because it is very difficult. I've called a few candidates this year bomb throwers, and Mike Daley is definitely a bomb thrower. It puts us in a very difficult position to vet each and every point, and to do that on the fly is almost impossible. But to have you guys in the same room to say, wait a minute, the law was amended, here's where you're wrong, I think it would be beneficial. To be honest, I think it'd be beneficial to you.
Well, I think you get it. I'm here. He said it yesterday. You all understand it. I'm sure your listeners are understanding it. We don't have to be in the same room to do that. He throws bombs. I wish he would start throwing the truth bomb because really that's what he's having a problem with. He mentions trials. See, he wants to stay away from the statistics, Bill. That's absolutely clear because the statistics crush him. The 4 years of my administration have been safer than they have been since 1990. 2015 was the safest year. So he has to try to attack those numbers, and he says that we manipulate the numbers. Well, the Observer Dispatch handled that. They clearly contacted DCJS. They said the district attorney's office is not in a position to manipulate those numbers. It's not possible. But he needs to try to draw the attention now from the voters away from those numbers because they just are so devastating to him. So yesterday on the show, he started to talk about trials. And Jeff, you were trying to pin him down. I think you were doing a great job, but it's like trying to nail Jell-O to a wall with him. You can't pin him down. He was absolutely unequivocal said there has been one trial in the last 5 years. That's absolutely false, okay? I tried personally myself. I tried People versus Ewan Reed and People versus Kyle Giuliano. They're both still in state prison today. So there's 2 that I personally did. My office tried 2 more, and in fact, yesterday he tried to then couch it by saying there was only one trial in front of Judge Crandall. And Jeff, you were hammering him on that. Is there more judges, et cetera? And he said there's been only one. Well, there's been 2. Okay, People versus Desmond Washington, and I got the other name, People versus Daniel Litz. So there's 2. So I did 2. My office has done 2 more in front of Judge Crandall. That's 4. He's just wrong. He really should start to look at his facts.
I have obviously no background in law enforcement, and it just seems
background
to me
in media.
That
by the record,
four still seems like, I'm just surprised it's only 4 in 5 years.
It's 4, and if it was 5, you'd say 10. I mean, not necessarily you. He would, and if it was 10, he'd say 20. You know, the defendant decides who goes to trial, not the people. Okay, it's their constitutional right to a trial. And he tried to say, well, I tried those 2 cases in 2012 because he got caught in that lie. He started to say, well, he only tried those because he was running against Mary Akavasi. Well, what did I do? Talk those 2 defendants into trying cases and going to state prison to make me look better so I'd win an election? And then how come I'm not trying cases right now? I'm in an election against Mike Daley. That's not how you run a district attorney's office. It's not about the district attorney. It's about the victims. It's about the people. It's about the community. If you start running your office in a way that makes you look better for your own good, you're in the wrong game. You're in the wrong business, and you start to do things that you shouldn't do. And he has been called as a prosecutor. He has been found by the appellate division to engage in prosecutorial misconduct. In a scathing decision, the appellate division once said that he was in serious dereliction of his ethical duties as a prosecutor. In that case, Bill, think about this. In that particular case, he actually went to trial against the defendant on a charge that he admitted he knew was baseless from the beginning. Can you imagine how dangerous that is to our sense? I mean, this is, that's it. If a prosecutor is going to start prosecuting people that they know did not violate the law, our system of justice is destroyed.
Can we talk about the one of his challenges? By the way, we're talking to Jeff Carpenter, the DA in Herkimer County. A very heated race going. A lot of accusations being thrown around in Herkimer County. Started out as a Republican primary. And Mr. Daley also accepted the Democratic nomination. Therefore, he is on the ballot coming up in November. One of the big things he says is that in order to skew the numbers, you'll take somebody who's committed, one person who's committed 100 crimes.
Right.
And he uses the Dahlsville case, the pedophile case.
Yes.
Saying that instead of going after that on each count, which would count 1, 2, 3, up to 100. Up to
100.
You put a deal together which counts only as 1, and it skews your numbers. That's been a big one that he's hammered away. Respond to that. Talk about that.
I want to first respond by saying, listen, the case he's referred to is recent. It involves children. Those children listen to the radio. They read the newspaper. I doubt very much when they came forward, they thought that their case was going to be used as a political bomb, as you call it, for Mike Daley to win a campaign. I think it's disgusting. But I'm going to address it for you because, number one, what that defendant was charged with, first of all, there were 7 victims. Mr. Daley has used dozens. He's used 20. There were 7 victims, okay? By the time that we got to the day of grand jury to present that matter, we were down to 4. 3 of the children were absolutely not going to testify, and it's not the job of the district attorney to torture them into doing it. You don't do that. You're dealing with children, all right?
Sometimes it's the parents, by the way, who say, and
the parents are involved in this decision.
I do not want my child to. And I've been through a case, case of pedophilia, and I've watched. It's frustrating sometimes for people, because you want justice, but at the same time, you got to look at these kids.
You have to take the child in. There's no question. So we were down to 4 that day. So to get back to the charge, though, because Jeff, you were trying to get him on this one also, and what happened was. He said, well, if you look at 2015, there were 98 violent felonies. He talked about that yesterday. That's true. That number is actually correct, okay? But what he failed to say is that the defendant was charged in 2015, but the crimes occurred years earlier. The crime that he was actually charged with, the 100 felonies that he's talking about, occurred in 2011 and 2012. So when those get reported, DCJS actually goes back and then readjusts the numbers for 2011 and 2012. It's got nothing to do with 2015. That's when the arrest occurred. So he's trying again there to be very sly and attack that 2015 because it's so good for me and so bad for him by using something that happened in 2011 and 2012. All right? Now, let's talk about the charge. The defendant was charged with coercive sexual conduct against a child. That's a statute that was enacted so that children don't have to testify about 100 incidents, okay? They can say, he did it to me here, he did it to me here. And as long as more than 3 months have elapsed, you get that coercive sexual conduct. It's much less traumatic for the child. That's what he was charged with. The law also says if you charge a defendant for in this case, having sexual relations with a child over that period of time, you can't charge him individually with those other charges if it's contained in that time period, and it was. So he knows the law, but again, it sounds great to say he should have been charged with 100 felonies. The law prohibits it if you go this route, okay? And he knows that. And anybody can look that up, Bill. This, we're talking about a former prosecutor here who, listen, if he had never done this before, you could cut him a little bit of slack. But he knows the law, he knows the rules, and he's misleading your listeners.
You believe he's twisting the facts and the stats to benefit himself in the campaign?
Absolutely. It's crystal clear. It's absolutely clear. So then when we struck the disposition, we had all of the children in our office. This was done with them presently in our office. The grand jury was seated in the other room, ready to go. Their parents were there. The children were there. We negotiated this disposition. Everybody was in favor of it. My office was congratulated by the multidisciplinary team who worked on this case. The parents were there. The children were there. Everyone was in agreement. And what Mr. Daley doesn't offer anybody is what would he have done differently? What would he have done differently? What would he have done? Would he have dragged those children into the grand jury room and made them cry in front of 23 people until they passed out? What would you do?
Right.
You don't torture children. I don't do that. He offers no other explanation. And again, it goes back to the defendant got 9 years. It should have been 10. If it was 10, it should have been 12. Well, you can always do that. We did the best we could.
I want to go back to just a couple of key issues, and then I'd like you to we'll get off the defending yourself from the bombs, if you will, and talk about your office and what you plan to do if reelected. But what about the there tends to be these real estate firms that like to get headlines online and get the clicks, and they come out with one of the most unsafe places to live in America is Herkimer, New York. What about the culture change that we are facing today? Herkimer, I mean, we've both grown up in the Valley.
Sure.
We've witnessed a change in particular the village of Herkimer.
Right.
So it's a culture. It's different. Upstate is changing. Main Street isn't what it was.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit and what you've seen.
I think it's an economic change driving that, number one. I mean, we don't have – listen, I grew up in the house that I'm living in now. I've lived there my entire life. So, in the 49 years I've been a Herkimer resident, clearly it has changed. We had beautiful stores. We had a beautiful Main Street. We
all got our
economy.
Clothes at the Herkimer Clothing Center. There's
where
we
no question.
Went,
we had the little yellow charge card. You'd go in there. I know.
Exactly
okay?
right. Yeah.
That store then turned into a head shop. I mean, there's been a cultural change. But one thing that has gotten better is the crime rate in Herkimer County. And these real estate things that you talk about,
they take stats and they're
out of San Diego. They're out of here. They're out of there. They reference. They might say Herkimer Village and apply it to the whole county, and it's just pie in the sky stuff. I don't even know what that's based on. If they looked at the real statistics, they'd say Herkimer County is one of the safest places to live. Okay,
let's talk about your office, USDA, how you proceed forward, and what another term would be like for the people of Herkimer County.
Well, hopefully what another term for the people of Herkimer County would be 4 more years of the crime rate decreasing like it has the last 4 years. That's my goal. Is there any better stat to look at for how the district attorney's office is performing than the crime rate in the county that he serves? So it's gone down every single year. I would love for it to continue to go down 4 more years. So we're not going to change much. I mean, we do what we do. We try cases that need to be tried when the defense says, hey, we're not accepting that disposition. Okay, let's go to trial. I've tried dozens of cases, Bill, since I've been a prosecutor in 2002 when I started. I have never had an acquittal on any felony jury trial I've tried. I've tried dozens of them. Maybe that's the message that they get over in the jail. Listen, if you're going to try a case against Carpenter, he's going to try it. And by the way, he's never lost one. So, is that the deterrent that they're hearing in the jail? Who knows what it is? Right. But I know that I have a good reputation with the defense bar. I treat them fairly. They treat me fairly. In a lot of communities, the DA's office and the defense bar are at odds. We're not at odds because we treat people fairly. We don't lie to each other. We don't pull any punches. We're straight up. If I've got issues with my case, I put it on the table. They do the same with me, and we resolve the case that results in justice. But where the rubber meets the road, if we need to try a case, we'll try a case any day.
You brought up the jail. I'll end with this. Obviously, for a Herkimer County resident, you realize it's costing the taxpayers. This jail issue is certainly costing taxpayers.
No question about it.
No resolution. It seems like Herkimer isn't budging. The county seems to be in a position now where they feel they have the upper hand, and now they don't want to negotiate. Is there anything the DA can do to be able to nudge things along and move forward? And obviously, you got to be hopeful of a resolution of this just as much as every other taxpayer.
Well, listen, there are things with that jail issue that the public doesn't even know. When we're boarding prisoners out, that impairs their attorney's ability to go talk to them if they're in Scary or they're in Cooperstown. So really what it does for me, it's frustrating for me at times because I'll say, did you talk to your client yet? We talked about something last week. No, I didn't get down there to see him yet. And it's not their fault. They can't set aside half a day to drive to Cooperstown.
Do you like the Herkimer location?
Listen, I'm not going to get into where it should be.
I thought I'd draw you in if I could.
I'm a taxpayer in the village of Herkimer. We need a new jail. Let's build a new jail. I think that justice will flow a little better in Herkimer County when we build one. No question about it.
Certainly an issue that needs to go away.
Well, it needs to be resolved.
Yeah.
Let's just resolve it.
Yep.
And just finally, I know you heard yesterday, we talked about the challenge, I guess, that your opponent had issued regarding a debate, and we kind of discussed that a little bit. He said he would be willing to come on. I know we alluded to this earlier, but at this time, you're feeling it's something you want to leave open, but you're not going to commit to.
Yeah, I'm considering it. Listen, I have a serious problem with Mr. Daley's credibility. If he wants to start telling the truth, and if he wants to debate me about the issues and stick to the facts and stick to the truth, I'll consider that. But he's not willing to do that. So a debate is only as good as the debaters. And if one of them is not telling the truth, that serves no legitimate purpose. I'm not going to be a part of that. I'm not going to lend my credibility to him by putting him in the same room or on the stage with me. He needs that. This is what he needs. He's the only one asking for a debate. And that debate debacle that he did with the VFW, and yesterday, he knew about it, but he couldn't tell you how I knew about it, and he couldn't tell you who told me. It's because nobody told me, Bill. It was absolutely clear. He sandbagged that all the way over the Labor Day weekend. He held a press conference. The media told me about the debate. I said, what debate? The debate tomorrow night. I have no idea. And I think even yesterday, Jeff, he told you that he didn't invite me until the day of the event. See, he doesn't even tell the truth when the truth best serves him. It was actually the day before, okay? But when you start fabricating stories, you can't stick to the facts, and he screwed up yesterday when it benefited him.
We'll leave it at that. Jeff Carpenter, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.